All right, welcome, folks. Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of the Coaches Connect call. I'm Coach Jeremy. We've already got some conversation underway. And Coach Rick, you had a question regarding how do we track some of the objective measures that we see in coaching that are less easily defined. Tell us a little bit more about what you're looking for, Rick.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what everyone's practices are around tracking the more sort of esoteric parts of the deep health model. So like mood, stress, sleep. Like, are people using apps? Are they using like journals? Are they using recall? Are they doing it throughout the day? Like, what are some of the practices people are finding success with their clients tracking those? Like you said, harder to define things. Like it's harder to define those emotions, especially. So just wondering
Mhm.
what everyone's doing.
Uh, to get this conversation kicked off, do you mind letting us know maybe what you've been using up until this point?
Yeah, so I guess I've not been doing a good job of it. That's sort of why I asked about it. So I'm finding through conversations, it's a lot of like if I'm having a conversation with someone weekly, for example, like it's a lot of them trying to remember and trying to think back. And sometimes our memories can play tricks on us, and we're not always totally honest with ourselves, and we don't fully understand why, we were super stressed out, so we did X or didn't
Mhm.
follow the plan, or do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I'm trying to maybe this is to help me out in with future cases like this. So right now it's more just conversation from me, um, and just sort of asking questions to sort of think back. But I feel like doing that and thinking back is, I feel like it'd be better to come into those conversations with them having like a track record, like, oh, I do
Mhm.
remember it happened on Tuesday night at 4 p.m. Do you know what I mean? So I'm wondering
Yep.
if anyone else does anything similar to that.
That is a fantastic question. And I mean, in regards to if you feel like this conversation is maybe a little self-serving, that is perfectly okay. That is what this call is all about. We want to make sure that you get the answers that you are looking for. Uh, I have some feedback for Rick, but I'm curious to know for coaches here. One, are you making it a point to capture those more objective measures? If so, how do you instruct your clients to do so? Christina, what do you got?
Hello, everyone. Straight to the question and answer. I would just say it depends on the client, like I put in the chat box. So I had a client like would reflect on 6 week progression when they have a full assessment, including tangible markers, right? Like weight, body composition, measurements, strength and endurance testing. And then we ask questions like, okay, how have your energy levels been compared to 6 weeks prior? How has your sleep and recovery been? Have you noticing anything changing in terms of your night routine? Have you noticed any changes in how you perform during workouts? Then we talk, like, let's say previously from the data we have from that goal sheet, we call it health and fitness goal sheet. We can follow up on things like your goal was to go to bed at a certain time, right? So there's some sort of data that you learn from based on the 6 week progression. And then you start gathering information in terms of existential, environmental, mental health, right? Like all the six deep health domains and follow up. I believe PN also has that worksheet. I can't find it right now, but it's like a will, deep health will or something, where like you print it for a client and they mark it and they cross to the level like from the bottom to the top of like existentially where you at, cross it, right? Are you, Jeremy, do you know what I'm referring to? I do remember seeing that will.
It sounds kind of like you're referring to like the deep health assessment, where you can kind of score each of the six domains, uh, depending on like you go through a questionnaire and then it will give you a score based on that, and it gives you a little printout that looks a little bit like a web.
Correct. That's exactly it. And then the client can kind of cross it all the way up if it's good, right? Or mark it as a couple lines from the bottom if it's only so little. So something like that can be tangible in certain perspective because it's 6 weeks later or 4 weeks later, whatever your time frame is with that client, you can revisit that again and assess per specific domain how have they progressed, or if they progress based on how they interpret their progression, if that makes sense. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it definitely does help.
Perfect, Christina.
Yes, Jeremy, that seems to be similar, but I'm referring more to like a web where there's actually you're crossing with a pencil. I will try to look for this form while other coaches kick in here, and I'll send it if I
Cool.
find it.
Yeah, take a second and give it a look, and if you find it, please pop it in the chat box. Uh, any other coaches here capturing objective measures in ways that you found to be useful for your clients? So I'll jump in here. Uh, One, it's fantastic that you're already considering these as valuable aspects of the coaching experience. So it's very easy to diminish or downplay the impact of those objective measures. They're harder to capture, and that is kind of at the heart of the question that you're asking. Uh, they are not as permanent. They are things that pop up in a moment that your client may not even realize that they're doing or experiencing. So you mentioned that it's like I'm capturing them mostly in conversation where I'm having a client reflect back. That is likely going to be the most valuable or one of the more valuable aspects of engaging in coaching with you is that there's no device that captures this. There's not a Fitbit that remembers when you were compassionate to yourself. There's not like a tracking device that's gonna remember that in a moment of stress, you made a choice to go to sleep earlier than stay up and doom scroll. Like these things tend to be captured mostly upon reflection. And how do we get that reflection is we have conversations with people. Great coaches are really great at helping people uncover those things. If you look in the chat box, I shared a tracking sheet there called the Bright Spot Tracker. And in PN coaching, you'll see in our level 1 and level 2 certifications, we often talk about dialing up to awesome or shining a light. Capturing those bright spots is part of our role as coaches. So you are doing that for them and giving them an opportunity to have that space to reflect. The Bright Spot tracking sheet that I shared there uh, does an okay job of it if the person has it handy and remembers to fill it in. So it's like if I were to use that type of sheet, I would prompt clients to say, hey, at the end of your day, let's try and set aside a few minutes. Like maybe this person already has a journaling practice or they have a consistent way of capturing their thoughts and feelings. This would be a nice adjunct to add onto that. If there's someone who's like the end of their day is chaos, like it might not work super well. And actually capturing it in conversation does actually make the most sense. It adds the least stress, but there's often one or two things that we can take away from each meeting. The benefit of also capturing it in the conversational form is that part of the association that you now have with me as your coach is uh, I went into the meeting, I felt like things kind of like went okay. The more subjective measures, body weight, circumference, weight on the bar, didn't really change that week. So I went in kind of with my head down. But then I spoke to my coach and we talked about some of the objective measures of, yeah, this was a more stressful week. I still made it to the gym. I didn't lose any ground on my strength training. Uh, I didn't engage in behaviors that set those subjective measures back. And now I have that association that I'm leaving that conversation with my coach and I feel much better about the way things went. So that is to say, like, even if you found a method of capturing these things a little bit more in the moment, which I think is still valuable and something that hopefully more coaches here can share how they do it, is valuable. It's not going to replace, I think, and it doesn't do you really a service to replace that when clients are like, oh, yeah, I sat down with Coach Rick and things actually aren't as bad as I thought they were. I feel pretty good. I feel ready to continue to make progress again this week. It's such a huge part of coaching, but incredibly, like criminally undervalued, in my opinion, where coaches love to talk about the educational experience and the knowledge that we have, but how do you make people feel? That I think is more important. Tony, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm jumping in late. Sorry, guys. I was ran over on one of my calls, but I think, Jeremy, you're highlighting a fantastic point. And when I think of my clients, and especially when they start to kind of ghost and I can see that they're experiencing some angst, what I like to go back to the beginning of their journey and then highlight all the changes that they've made, their personal growth, self-talk, all those things. So you can put into either a voice note or a talk track, something that it's unexpected and a surprise for them that knows that you're in tune with them and that you're paying attention. So they don't feel like they're just I'm just falling off, like, hey, I know that you're having a hard time. It's a tough week. This will be quick. I just want to highlight you've done X, Y, Z over the last 12 weeks, and usually you quit a program by this time, but now you're doing this. So kudos to you. That's it. Get back to work. And that type of stuff has done really well with my clients, keeping them engaged and keeping them from just burying their head in ghostland.
That is fantastic. And I mean, so you draw upon a valuable aspect there. And I know Coach Kate has written about this, and we've talked about this in previous calls as well, about appropriate comparison. So in health and fitness, like we often say, it's like, oh, don't compare yourself to others or don't compare yourself even to yourself in the past. And it's like, maybe, but I think when there's an appropriate point of comparison here, especially one that helps to highlight positive action, comparison can be incredibly useful. So as Tony pointed out, uh, where does that point of comparison come from? It's often us as a coach being an objective observer over a period of time. So if you've been working with someone for, you mentioned like 12 weeks, like so about 3 months there, we are now looking at a time where it's like, oh, conversations at the beginning of our coaching experience often had this kind of pattern to them. You often mentioned this and this and this. And now in this most recent conversation, you've mentioned patterns that suggest that you're shifting away from those things. And it's not that you like captured all this data. And it's like maybe you have other forms that you can reference or things that you can share with them. But the objective reference is what you, the coach, present to them. And it's like, I'm not making these things up. Like, you were there where you had these conversations, you can remember that. And now you're presenting in a different way, which is incredibly valuable. So being able to be that person, that tool that helps them to have that point of comparison is absolutely useful as a coach. Miriam actually popped something into the chat box as well. So having a food and mood journal. So Rick, if this is specifically, I guess, if you were using this with like primarily clients, that may be something that you want to look into as well. So uh, I know in Pro Coach we actually have something similar. We just don't refer to it as that, but the journaling uh, piece of the Pro Coach experience, where it's like you can turn it on in the messaging system, you can capture photos of meals, and then there are a few reflective questions that it asks. So it asks about setting, like where did you eat, how hungry were you, uh, and then I think how much did you complete of this meal, and then there's like an additional note section as well where they can fill in data. I often use it in just the specific practice that we're working on, especially when we're working on a food behavior practice. I'll just ask them to capture if something went outside of what you deem normal. So if we assume that it's like, yeah, you're pretty smart. Your normal behaviors are like in line with what you want to see. Great. No need to really capture anything there. If you experienced a behavior that was like, this was outside of my normal and I'm not pleased with it, let's capture that. That's probably something that we can talk about and there's further discussion needed. Conversely, if you capture a specific behavior where it's like, this is different from my normal in a better direction, let's capture that as well. Those are the things that I want to talk about, more of the tail end stuff, so that we can bring the average up. And then eventually it's like, oh, if this is happening so consistently that that's your new normal now, we can reference it to previously what was happening, but we don't really need to talk about it too much anymore. We'll strengthen it whenever it comes up, but it may not be a huge point of discussion. Now that just may be how you live.
Sorry, it's a bit. That was a great answer. I really, I like that idea. The answering the questions as you take picture of the food that those choices that you're not 10 out of 10 on. Do you have any like
Mm-hmm.
go-to questions that you say you're working with someone from the first time and you're sort of in that exploratory phase, like what are your where are things going wrong? And both of you are not quite sure yet. Is there any like go-to questions you have to sort of figure that out? So like they
Mhm.
take like, are there any go-to prompts that you have them sort of answer? Like, for example, what was your stress level when you made this hot? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there any that you like to fall back on?
Yeah, in terms of like if it's specifically a choice that they offer up, so they're like, yeah, I did this thing and I'm not thrilled with it, then we're just asking questions to gain more context around what about this choice felt like not optimal to you? What was the thing that you feel was specifically missing here? And that could be a myriad thing. So let's ask like about food composition. Let's ask about food behavior. Where do you feel like you were off the mark here? Before I interject and say like, oh, here's a list of 10 things that I think you did wrong, because that's not super motivating. And it's like whether or not I'm right or wrong actually doesn't really matter as much as what is the context compared to where they feel they could have done better. Let's point them in that direction anyway. Most of the time, like my clients are intelligent enough that they know where it's like, I can sense that something doesn't feel right, and then we'll help with those open-ended questions to give them space to explore that thought on their own. So you can ask about composition, you can ask about setting, you can ask about kind of the context of their day, what was their emotional state, what was their hunger pre and post, and oftentimes asking those questions gives more context for the choice and also helps to reduce the level of kind of shame and anxiety that they felt around that choice, because that's also something that's incredibly valuable for us as well, especially if they've noted that guilt and shame related to food is something that's quite high for them starting off. I do you no favors by being like, oh, here are all the things that I can nitpick about what was wrong about this choice, but allowing you to explore it without judgment, giving you space to self identify where you think things went wrong, and then even potentially saying, like, yeah, like I see how you may feel like that one wasn't great, but given the context that you shared, do you think that's reasonable? Can you see the logical kind of like thread that led you to that place? Because then if you can, it's like, yeah, maybe we take the like boot off our own neck here for a second and understand why you made that choice. And then if we replay that choice, what would slightly better look like? And aim for that in the future. Tony, did you unmute?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rick brings up a good point where most clients always feel like they're doing something bad. So I always go back to reference what they did right. So you my client that just had Jack in the Box or whatever, like, oh, I melted down, I had Jack in the Box, da da da. It's like, okay, was there anything that you did right about that? It could be drinking more water, it could be eating mechanics. Maybe you got 4 tacos instead of 6 tacos. Let's look for the wins because most of these episodes, and people fail to recognize, are episodic. You're going to have another iteration soon. You just didn't fall back to that fast food. You're going to be doing that 35 to 40 times per year. So we're not looking at change for the long term. We're looking at incremental change because you're going to be in that same situation again. And if we can start making these incremental changes, then that's how sustainable change can last.
Yep. I think it's very useful to play out that scenario again. The question that I ask once we've kind of done that initial debrief and we're looking ahead to the future is, uh, how can we make this less shitty? Is there anything that comes to mind for you where, if you were to run into the situation again, what do you got? And oftentimes there, again, we're taking down that, I phrase it that way specifically because we're taking down the threat level. It's not that serious. So you're not getting pulled into the principal's office or into the confessional booth to share your sins with me. You're just sharing, hey, this is how I got to that point. And it's like, cool. Next time you're in a similar situation, how can we move forward and be slightly better? Rick, I want to bring it back to you. Based on this conversation, is there anything that you feel geared towards exploring a little bit more? Anything that you feel potentially validated that you're doing already well? Anything that you might want to do differently in the future?
Um, I guess so. I like the idea of the sending the questions and the photograph at the time, but then I think also like the questions that you and Tony both offered about the extra questioning that you can do after the fact, I think those are pretty powerful questions, and they really get to the heart of it. So I'm definitely going to be using some of those. I've been writing some notes there on some of those questions you suggested, especially hunger pre and post. I've not considered that before. Like um, we ate this because we thought it was going to fill us up because we felt that. Like, did it do that? Like, I think that's quite interesting. And then what would slightly better look like? Is there anything we did right? Like those things that you and Tony suggested. I thought those are great questions. So I've added those to the toolbox for sure.
Fantastic. And I will say, in terms of like the tools that we've kind of explored here, uh, understanding also kind of what is the bandwidth of a particular client, and then that leads us to which kind of tool or what kind of uh, approach they can use in the moment. So someone who tends to be like quite introspective, they like using technology, they are more drawn towards capturing the experience in the moment, giving them something like that bright spot tracker or enabling the journaling function on their pro coach account, that makes a lot of sense. They are more likely to utilize it, uh, as opposed to someone who prefers more of the conversational method. In the moment, they're unlikely to capture those things. Like whenever you have a conversation with them, they're like, "Oh yeah, that did happen. Oh yeah, you know what? Now that we're talking about it, now I do remember." uh, or someone who just like shows that they don't have as much bandwidth right now to add more things to their kind of their roster or their to-do list. Like that person, I might not want to take a higher tech approach to try and encourage them to capture in the moment. It's like we can facilitate that through conversation. Someone who's on the other end of that spectrum, who's like, I love capturing data. I have every wearable imaginable. I want to be able to quantify things. Great, your approach may be a little bit more detailed and in the moment, and you'll just capture those things and then share it with me. And then that stimulates our conversation. In either case, it's about, again, meeting the client kind of where they're at, using the right tool for that moment, and then knowing how to help them with the interpretation of that information. It sounds like, from an interpretation standpoint, like you're already guiding them very usefully. You have a few more questions to add in there to help kind of tease out some useful information. But yeah, I think this is an excellent starting conversation for us for today, and very useful as a reminder to all coaches that those objective measures, they're the ones that likely you will be able to capture most frequently and see those changes, especially when subjective measures are not moving at a rate that a client may expect initially. Thanks for getting us kicked off, Rick. It looks like Christina found the resource that she was referring to as well. So feel free to pop into the chat box and grab that to see if that's something that you want to utilize with all or some of your clients in the near future as well. Tony, what do you got?
I just kind of had a question and so wanted to get the community and yourselves feedback on this stuff. I've been running some challenges pretty successfully. I've been getting a lot of people enrolled in these challenges, and the sweet selling spot for myself, at least at this juncture, has been about 6 weeks. I'm getting a lot of people signing up. The problem that I'm encountering now, it's a different problem than I had before, is that some people are signing up for the challenge and then kind of finishing the challenge and not reloading or saying, oh, sweet, I lost 11 pounds. This is awesome. Thanks. And just get a thumbs up, which is obviously not great for my business. And I've been fortunate enough to have somewhere I can sell into the year long or just the monthly commitment, which I prefer to sell at a different price point. And I just want to know, as far as strategies or anything that people are doing right now that's working well to get these guys that are finishing off under 6 weeks and then re-enrolling or signing up for their monthly coaching option.
So it sounds like you're looking to try and improve your conversion rate from kind of like the challenge model towards
Yeah.
more consistent coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a useful question to start with is, what does the exit process look like in the challenge model? And let's start there.
The what? I'm sorry?
So let's say you're running a 6-week challenge.
Mm-hmm.
they I would assume that it's like a lower touch program compared to your one-on-one like monthly or annual coaching memberships.
Right now, the model I'm running, I'm able to do kind of both. I'm sorry, my kid's crying.
No
I'm able to,
worries. I mean,
yeah.
if you need to attend to that, by all means.
No,
But
I'm okay. Yeah, the model I'm running the same amount of checkpoints. So I'm running a one-to-many model. So,
mhm,
I do my group, I essentially do group coaching and I'll do like individual kind of a kickoff session and one-on-one workout session, but they're all getting like a complete program themselves. So it's actually very time efficient for me to run that model. So
mhm,
even my guys that are doing the one on like the monthly coaching, similar to that challenge model.
mhm. Gotcha. Okay. So the question I would look at is like, what do the last few interactions from you look like at the end of that challenge? So starting to plant the seed, probably like the midway point, like, hey, we're at the halfway point now. Uh, if you're doing well, like, let's gather some feedback here. If you need a little bit more support, here are some alternative options for you to consider once we're done week 6. Week 4 comes around. Hey, last week we shared alternative options. If you need more assurance or if you need more support, let's book a call. Week 5, hey, we're coming up on the final week soon. Uh, if you want to share some feedback, if you want to hop on a call, let me know. Week 6, we're at the end of our conversation here. Let's gather some feedback from you, referral, testimonial. What are next steps? So you consistently planting that seed and then trying to solidify that conversation a little bit more. I think the best thing you can do probably at the end of your challenge is to try and book like a one-on-one call
Mm.
and then give them a flavor of like, oh, this is what one-on-one coaching would look like. Here are some of the things that we can talk about. Here's how you've progressed through this time with me where it's like a lower effort with a slightly higher effort or a slightly higher price point. Here's what a reasonable outcome may look like if you're interested in pursuing that. Like if they've already gotten everything they want out of the 6 week, then it's like, great, we've done the job. If you have any friends who would benefit from this challenge or from working with me, please feel free to offer a referral and let them know like you'd appreciate that. If they're finishing and they're like, cool, this is everything I could have wanted, thank you, coach, then you're kind of uh, your own worst enemy there, but also you've done a great job. So hopefully a good enough job that they're happy to put your name in other people's ears.
Yeah, and I think it's been one of those like it's worked really well, like really well. So I'm thinking, okay, because what initially was a challenge just to my clients to just spark more action from these guys and more engagement, and it worked like gangbusters. But I invited other people to come in, and initially I only charged only everybody was enrolling in that month to month. But I gave some people the option of, hey, if you just want to buy it for 6 weeks, here's you can have this. And then I just threw a kind of like last ditch in case somebody wanted to, and then a bunch of people ended up signing up. So okay, but then I got to the end. They're like, "Oh, awesome! I lost like 11 pounds. Like, great." It's like okay. So now I'm trying to figure out and it's probably more of a positioning problem where I need to sell the
Right.
coaching program, and then the challenge is part of that of giving them maybe like a micro of what they get inside, and then just have that be just one kind of recurring offer, which is ideally what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it may sound like more positioning and differentiation, where it's like,
Mm,
how is this significantly different? How is
yeah.
this process different? How am I learning new skills that continue to complement the things that you've already taught me? A theme that would pop up for me there would be if I was like a curious consumer. Uh, 6 weeks, you mentioned dropping like 11 pounds, which is uh, significant. I might
Aggressive.
look at, oh, what does more sustainable a more sustainable approach look like? What does maintenance look like? They tend to be slightly different strategies. How can I continue to learn from you and maintain what I've learned? So using that kind of terminology to help differentiate might be useful. Coaches who are here, what are your thoughts in terms of helping Tony to increase that retention rate moving from his challenge-based approach to more of a regular coaching engagement?
And I think what you mentioned in terms of having those conversations before the end of the challenge is a good idea. So like I assume there's some I'm assuming maybe there wasn't. There's some sort of goal setting at the start of it, like just maybe pushing that at the start, like, hey, this is something we do every 6 weeks. Is start looking at those goals. Like, what's next for you? You had this great transformation over 6 weeks. Like, what's next for you? Oh, you want to do X, Y, Z? Well, great. Actually, here's how I can help you with that. So just finding organic ways to reopen up that discovery call sort of situation again, and just finding ways to have those conversations. I like as well what you mentioned about differentiating it. So like, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I see a lot with the challenges. It's five principles. Well, once people know the five principles or whatever it is, the five pillars, the whatever it is, the way that you do things, they might think, well, I know how to do that now. So what am I buying, sort of thing. So just being able to differentiate how this is different, and so whether that's the support that they get, whether that's the extra sessions that they get from monthly, like I think yeah, just being able to differentiate. Like, yes, you've got the theory, but you do still need that practical touch point from me through the coaching. So just like Jeremy mentioned, like the differentiating.
Awesome, thank you, Rick. Tony, does it give you some ideas on things you might want to implement for the next go around?
It does. Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. It's good to talk shop about these things, right? 'Cause sometimes you always feel like you're in a vacuum. So I think a big highlight is differentiating. And then what I'm thinking is not even selling the 6 week challenge, just having those things embedded into my coaching, because those things are really popular for my coaching clients. And then having the challenges be a smaller snippet, like a 5 days challenge that people can enroll for free, just so they can get used to the technology, put in that skin, and then say, hey, they want to challenge us. Sorry, it's only for coaching clients. This is what it is per month, and then we go from there. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Uh, I mean, yeah, this is definitely, it sounds like a little bit more of a marketing based conundrum. It sounds like the coaching that they're receiving is solid. They're happy with the end result. Uh, Now it's a question of how do I keep that going with a way that encourages sustainability and longevity. Sharif, what
I
do you
think
got?
Hi, Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
So my question is, what if I can't find a very specific niche that I feel very confident in approaching and marketing for, and my niche is simply fitness enthusiasts who are passionate about improving their fitness and taking their fitness to the next level. Would that sound like something that is specific, or is it too general to be my niche and the person that I should market for? What do you think?
I mean, that's the kind of niche where it's like humans. Like my niche is coaching humans, which is fine. At that point, it's just like you don't need to have a stated niche. Like if that's the people that you enjoy coaching, like
It's
that's the
not a
people I
must.
enjoy coaching. I don't I don't think it is. Like what does the niche provide? It gives you it gives you several things. It gives you a way to one, deepen your understanding on a particular subset of humans so that you can garner greater expertise in that. So either through coaching experience, through deeper education, through self-referential experience as well. Like that's all really valuable stuff. Uh, if you don't enjoy it, it seems like a silly way to set up a business where it's like, I actually don't really care about mountain bikers, but I have all these certifications for mountain biking, so I might as well do it. And it's like every time I have a client, I'm just like, ugh, I can't talk about getting dirt out of your teeth anymore. Uh, if you want to have like a broader message, you can. The thing that you'll run into is if your message kind of like bypasses some people, it just doesn't feel as specific enough to them, or they're concerned with can you meet my needs? And like, and I've had that before, as I mentioned, like I don't really care for having a niche, but I've had clients where it takes me a little bit more to, once we have contact, to assure them that I can be an appropriate coach for them. Like working with people who are athletes across like team sports or endurance athletes, they're rare people to come across the desk for me. I let them know, hey, I enjoy the challenge of learning new things. If you're willing to like understand that when you ask a question, my first response might not be the ultimate response. I'll often say, I'm unsure, but I can find that out for you. Then that's cool. People tend to respond pretty well to that. They're like, hey, this guy's not trying to feed me like a false bill of goods. Of being quite honest where my limitations as a coach are currently. I don't think there are going to be things that will hold you back, and the information is easily available. You're hiring me to help find that information on your behalf and taking out the guesswork. And then I can still use my more general expertise to filter through the things that are probably more valuable and probably a little bit more smoke and mirrors.
So it's not a must to have a specific niche in order to become a successful coach, successful remote coach. It's not
I
necessary.
mean, based on personal experience, I wouldn't say it is. Uh, you still need to find a way to market your message that appeals to the people that you want to work with. Keep in mind, like a lot of times niches are divided into like specific age category, specific activity, specific profession. Like within those categories, there's still quite a bit of variation. So it's like I need to learn how to speak to humans first before I know I need to understand like what are the demands of nutrition for surfers. So that being said, it's like, do I have a message that's appealing enough in a broad sense that people can relate to?
Yeah, sure. If I would, I mean, I've been in a ton of marketing groups and marketing calls, and I think a lot of times coaches get really lost in the niche question of like, who is my avatar? What's their language? Speak to your people. All that stuff is great. I have had hundreds of clients. Most of the people are coming from my pipeline, people that I know. The people that I do get randomly from the internet, from books, from all that stuff tend to be worse clients than the ones that people that I personally know. So I would say work on the offer, get a compelling offer, something that people want. And you'll know people want because they'll raise their hand and say, I want that. Once you have that, then you can really start to build that business. But until you have that stuff, it's just I wouldn't get lost in that.
Because it never made sense to me to have a very specific niche. I don't have like a cyclist who does marathons or triathlons. I don't have this specific niche that I have in mind that I think is the most suitable for me that I want to work with. It doesn't make sense to me, but still I hear all the marketing gurus online saying all the things about having a niche and how it's necessary in order to succeed as a business, as a remote coach. And it never made sense. And I was trying to find an alternative to that in a way that resonates more with me.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I will note that my own bias is that I tend to run counter to many of the staples that you will see in uh, fitness business coaching, which I will freely cop to that. I will say that it may be easier to have a niche, assuming that you are passionate and you can show up in that niche authentically. To try and shoehorn your own approach into a niche where it's like, I actually don't care about this group that much. I find this boring and dull. And the idea of me having similar conversations in this vein for the next 10 to 20 years makes me want to jump off a bridge. Like maybe having a niche for you actually does not make sense. Being a coach who speaks more in like general terms about here is accessible like health and fitness that would apply to pretty much everyone, whether you're like a day one or you're someone who's looking to kind of refine their approach after trying multiple things. Uh, that is a message that I think people can get behind. You'll maybe vacillate a little bit more and have to say, hey, this is a message that's for a particular segment of my group. Like a lot of the people that I interact with and end up coaching are people who are newer to coaching themselves. So sometimes I'll say in my message, this is particularly for my coaches. it's a general message, but it really hits home for them. So there are definitely pros and cons to identifying and having a niche. I think the greatest pro beyond like success from a monetary standpoint is just I love talking about this stuff. I enjoy having conversations with these people about this topic. If I wasn't being paid to do it, I would still be having this conversation to anyone who will listen to me. But if it's not there and it's just like, oh, this is just a group of humans that I can identify, then it may not be something that you want to invest a lot of time and energy and effort into. Rick, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it turned into an issue of identifying the niche rather than a niche that I enjoy working with. That's the issue. Thanks, Jeremy.
No worries. Rick, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, and this is kind of biased because I've never really worked online. I've always worked on a gym floor, but like I've never really had a niche. My niche, I think people are attracted more to the message. So if it's about from a marketing thing, I think you just need to know your message and double down on the message, double down on philosophy. Like if you put a banner up on, say it's Instagram or whatever, and like this is what I stand by, like the people who interact with that, that's your group. Like I don't think you need to do the I work with busy mums that are 46. Like
Exactly.
I see it on LinkedIn all the time. I see it on LinkedIn all the time, and I like you. I watch a lot of the guys who are sort of recommending that you have to have your niche and double down. But I mean, I didn't have a niche, and I've had 70-year-olds, I've had 15-year-olds, like, and everyone in between. So if I don't have a niche and I'm attracting those people, like, why are they coming to me? It's just personality. It's because I'm goofy on the gym floor and I talk to them. Like it's people who. So I guess if you want to call it a niche or a differentiator, that niche would be people who like not taking things seriously. And I guess that is a niche in a way. Like it's a differentiator. I think it's terminology, but I think just knowing what makes you different and what your actual philosophy is, and if you put a banner up, you'll soon get interaction, and then once you get interaction, you can try and sell from there.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you, Rick. I have been asked before, how does your niche look like? How old are they? What do they do? What would they wear? Where would they go sit or hang out? So for me, these questions are great for someone who knows the answers. But for me, when I didn't know the answers, I just wanted to identify the person. Despite that, I don't know if it's the right person for me. I just want to have the answers for these questions so I can dominate the marketing asset. So I thought that there were questions that I need to answer in order to fill my bio and attract more clients. This is how I pictured it, which is not, obviously it's not accurate, because I've seen some people, not a lot, but I've seen some people do really well without having this.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rick.
Just to piggyback on the back, I just thought of something else. So one of my old professors, we actually talked about this, and he said to me, "I want to work with people who want to work with me. Like that's it. Like, and so I get it. Like you want to put it, and for even extra context, he built a business working specifically with hockey players, but he also doesn't just work with hockey players. Like it's again, it's who comes to you and wants to work with you. So I think, yeah, you need something to put in the bio, but maybe what you put in the bio is, it's not I work with X. Maybe what you put in the bio is I help people who want to do things this way. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, maybe you're not, because I know the formulas you're talking about as well. I am an X and I help X do X. That's the formula, right? I've seen that on LinkedIn a few times. But maybe it's not that. Maybe it's, I am passionate about this and I do things this way, and then people can find you that way. I just wanted to throw that in because I just remembered it after I muted myself.
That is fantastic. And I mean, yeah, I will echo that sentiment. The people who my niche is people who want to work with Coach Jeremy. Those are the people that I'm happy to work with. There are a few where it's like, maybe we're not a great fit, and we'll discover that quite early in the process. But anyone who goes through that discovery call, it sounds like once they give me a little bit of information on what they're working on, and then I can assess, hey, this is something that I'm comfortable helping you with. I feel quite confident that either I currently have the information required and I know what our conversations are going to look like, or I'm happy to learn more on your behalf to help guide you on this path. Like, check those boxes, and we're more or less off to the races.
Just a curious question, Jeremy. What's your elevator pitch? If you're stuck with someone in the elevator, what would you say or describe? What do you do? Who do you work with? How do you work with people? Do you have like
That's
20
it.
seconds? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, so actually that kind of boils down to what I was looking for, or the question I had in my back pocket for today for the coaches here is, what is your role as a coach? So if you were to ask me, what is my role as a coach? What do I provide for people? Part of the conversation that we had earlier with Rick is, I am someone who helps magnify the good things that you're already doing and helps you to clarify the path towards the person that you want to be. So what does that mean? It's like, if you were here for our earlier conversation, we talked about uh, how do we become objective observers for our clients and help them to capture the things that they are doing well, the the less material things, the harder things, the less subjective data. How do we capture those things? People are always doing valuable things for themselves. They're unlikely to be able to remember those things without prompting. So my role as a coach is typically help you break down your day, think about what are the things and the elements that led you to those choices, and then help you to make more of those choices. If I can do that consistently, results are not a question. People's quality of life improves. Like, those are the things that I really want to hang my hat on. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a
Yeah,
little
so
bit
no
ambiguous,
specific
but it leads to a deeper conversation. So that's typically why I leave it that way.
have anyone ever told you that this is not specific enough? You need to have a narrowed down kind of people, specific age, specific interest,
Well,
anything like that?
typically, I've never sold coaching to someone within the span of like a 5 floor elevator flight. But if they've booked a call with me, I normally have a little bit of a follow up from there. If they are still curious and like, oh, tell me more about what that looks like, then I can give more concrete examples.
Yeah, sure. I think you're dealing with we're experiencing with a lot of trainers. I see experiences that you're thinking about the world, and you don't need to think about the world. I don't know how many clients you're looking for. You probably need maybe, I don't know, 20, 30. I don't know how many you're targeting, but I would look at who you're serving right now and where you get those clients from. And typically they're from people that you already know. And so I would double down on those efforts because that's a lot easier to replicate. And people look at my stuff, they'll go on my things and they're like, oh my God, this guy does this, that. I have clients in, Toronto, Chicago. I'm in California. I got clients all over the world. But if you're targeting the global market, that's not what you want to do. Most of my clients live here in Orange County. And they're people that know me, even though it's a fully remote position. So I think that simplifies it and focus on having conversations with people versus getting this huge thing going and then getting conversations, getting appointments, and then talking to those people. Then you get some wins. And I think that's how but where are your current clients coming from?
Referrals or people that I meet on the gym floor. They
Yeah,
turn into remote clients.
yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think it's much easier for me to get clients from in-person connections rather than social media ads, Instagram ads, for example, or someone who direct messages me and we talk. It's very rare when this happens.
Yeah, I would say
So,
like, yeah, almost non-existent. So I wouldn't do that.
yeah, referral will always be the
Yeah,
primary source of building any business. People trust people that they get from referrals. If I have a friend, if I there's a service that I'm looking for and a friend recommends a name, it's pretty much done. I'm going to make that call, especially if it's like a trusted friend. Uh, doesn't matter what the thing is. Like, yeah, oh, you use them? They were great. I had a something that I needed some work done in a washroom. I mentioned it to a friend. They're like, oh, this handyman's great. Called, booked, done. There was no other searching done there, except for like the mountain of YouTube videos I watched beforehand, and then immediately disregarded it because I had a trusted referral. In terms of your messaging overall, like between what Rick shared and Tony shared, I think finding that message that rings true to you, that feels authentic to you, that this is where I'm proud to plant my flag, and this is what I believe as a coach. Whoever that message resonates with, that is your niche of people, and I believe that to be very true. You can craft your message after a while where it's like, oh, between the last 5 things that I posted online, these 1 to 2 tend to get a little bit more traction. What's the commonality between these 2? Cool, I'll keep posting more content in that vein. Not all of my stuff has to be that. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more humorous, sometimes it'll be a little more educational, sometimes it'll be a little bit more specific to one topic. But at the end of the day, it has to be stuff that you're like, I'm happy to engage with these conversations, to engage with these clients. Otherwise, we'll be back here having this conversation again quite quickly about what's the best niche. I see that we're running out of time here. Whitney, I saw that you and Christina had your own conversation in the chat box. I'm glad to see that you were able to get some guidance there. Thank you, Christina, for engaging on that front. Whitney, I would encourage you to post in the coaches community for your question there if you were looking for a deeper response. And then if you don't get what you want there, join us on our next call, which is on, let me double check.
How do I post in the coaches community? Is that like in Facebook?
Yes, in Facebook.
Okay.
Cool. Next call is on. Too many boxes, not enough time. Is on July 31st. And I think it might be a Jeremy call, but you may be graced by Kate. We'll see who shows up. Until next time, folks, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for offering those amazing topics and for any feedback that you're able to provide. And I hope to see you again next week. Cheers, gang.